Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of mindWATCH. I'm Dan Katz.
I am Thomas Scholl.
And we are very excited that you are here with us this week. We have a neat and exciting special guest with us today. Would you like to introduce yourself, sir?
Hello, everybody. My name is Ryan Scholl, and I am very honored to be here this week.
And we're honored that you're here, too. So for our edition of mindWATCH. So how was everybody's week?
Pretty good. Pretty tiring because I haven't really been able to sleep in my own bed because I've been house sitting for somebody that I know. So, of course, sleeping in a bed that's not yours is, can sometimes be a bit of an adjustment. But for the most part, I've been trying to keep up with meditations and working out and things like that. But I'm still keeping consistent with it. So this week hasn't been too different from any other week that I've had. So, yeah, it's been pretty good, pretty laid back and great. So how about you guys?
Ryan, how was your week?
My week was great. I, was productive and got a lot done. I'm not as advanced in the mindfulness process as you guys are, but I'm definitely trying the meditation, and I'm at a very basic level, but so I'm sure you guys will teach me a thing or two.
But you are a huge mindFULLme fan, so we appreciate that.
Yes,
Listening
absolutely.
to all our different
As
podcasts.
should everyone out there be.
Yes. But especially listen to all the different meditations, our Monday meditations and our Thursday podcasts and our Wednesday weekly inspirational messages. I've actually had a rougher week than normal. First world problems, I know, but my computer died. With all my stuff on it, and I was not very mindful when I didn't back up anything. So it is in the process right now of hopefully being fixed, but I'm a little lost without it, especially when trying to prep for next year's classes online. But still keeping up with working out and eating better. We've all of us.
Yeah, we're all of us doing that. That's true.
And working out every day and going for my 4-mile walk and been a joy, though. I mean, the sunrise this morning was just like stunning.
that was a really nice picture.
That was a beautiful picture.
Just stunning.
Like hues of purple and orange, and it's beautiful. I like to sleep in, so I don't get to see that much, but it was nice to see a photo.
I do like to wake up early, though, and do that.
Yeah.
And go for the walk. So, Thomas, why don't you kind of cue us in a little bit about what this week and what this podcast is going to be, because for all those who like mindWATCH, it's a little bit different.
Right. So if you had listened to our previous episode, which was, I believe, 3 weeks ago, I had mentioned towards the end of that episode that we were going to be doing something that was not as new age as we typically do, just to kind of veer off a little bit, but not anything too crazy. And we were going to be talking about some of our favorite movies of all time and how it impacted us. And that kind of goes back into the conversation we had the last episode, where anything can be mindful. It doesn't necessarily always have to be reading a book that specifically talks about mindfulness. It doesn't have to be doing yoga every day. It doesn't have to be meditating every day, even though those things are fantastic and you absolutely should do them. I believe that anything that provokes any kind of positive emotion, or anything that wants you to further and better yourself, or something that makes you think, can be mindful. And to us, for this week, we're going to be talking about films that did that for us. So I think with that segue, we're going to start talking about, so this is how it's going to work. We're going to do kind of like a round robin. We're going to go around the table. We each have our list of movies. We're going to do 5 movies each. And we're going to talk about a little bit about how each movie impacted us in whatever way. And we're just going to go around the table, start and go down each of our lists. So if you want to start with your first movie.
I don't want to go first.
Yeah, go ahead. I mean, we'll go in a circle. It's like a round robin.
Okay. So when I was looking over my list, and by the way, for everybody out there listening, we did have some rules. Trilogies were 1 movie, not 3.
Yeah, so a trilogy could count as a slot. So it doesn't have to be 1 movie from the trilogy, although it can be, but you can choose to have like a trilogy in 1 slot.
So I started with, for myself, like of our 5 movies that we were going, I started with myself with the Star Wars trilogy. And I'm talking the classic trilogy, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. And so this movie impacted me in a couple of different ways. One, Yes, I might be a little bit older than Thomas. So I saw A New Hope when I was 9 years old. That's when the movie came out. I was 9.
You saw it in the theaters?
I did. I saw it in the
So
theaters.
did I.
It was just beyond powerful and beyond moved me. And I've always liked movies, but A New Hope opened the door to what movies could be for me. And then all of a sudden, I just love the experience. I mean, I love going to the movies. Love it. And Star Wars really is the movie that kind of sparked that. I mean, obviously, I was 9. I had been to a lot of movies beforehand. But the story for me, I think, also sparked my love of spirituality. So I know we've talked about before on mindWATCH, we've discussed our own spiritual journey. And of course, I've been doing things like meditation for just decades. But if I really look back on it, I remember even in college discussing the spiritual mysticism of the Force and the whole idea of, a person that is introduced to a way of life, which would be Luke in A New Hope, and really being introduced to the Force and this whole way of life, and how he grew within his own path, how he really grew up through the Force and his journey, bringing him to adulthood and battling the demons with inside himself. And everybody goes through that, when they're in high school and in college, you always battle the different aspects of yourself before you really truly know who you are until a later part in your life. And that whole process was Star Wars. And it wasn't just about the good versus evil. Of course I like that. And it wasn't just about all the special effects, because of course I like that. And lasers, add laser to a movie.
And the special effects, especially today, still hold up pretty well.
They really do. But I think it was that whole journey is what has always attracted me. I have seen the original trilogy 1,000 times, and I could watch them 1,000 more. And even when they're always reshown on TNT, I'll stop the TV and start watching, even though we own them. Mm-hmm. I still will do that.
Because they have marathons on TV all the time, and it's just a great movie to put on, either 3 of them.
It is, but that's how it impacted me. So that would be my first one.
What was your favorite of the 3? Empire?
Empire.
Yeah,
without a doubt.
Agree. And I would kind of want to add to that on how Yoda is kind of like that Buddhist monk that kind of hides in the mountains, but is a terrific teacher. Mm-hmm. And that thought sort of arose the more I started watching Star Wars, especially as I got older. I got some more of the spirituality themes and how much is actually in Star Wars, especially with the Force and
it really is
the dark side and everything.
And every time I watch Empire, I get something even deeper from it. It's constantly evolves as you evolve, for me at least.
Yeah. So and no spoilers here, even though the movie's been out for 30 plus years, you should probably see it at this point.
You should if you haven't.
Yeah.
So.
All right. So, are you done? Or
I am, but why don't we have Ryan go next?
All right.
Okay. Well, when I was putting together this list, I can't pick just my favorite movie of all time and then rank them. So what I try to do is just pick movies that I really enjoyed and I've watched multiple times before. And I tried to pick one from various genres.
You have, people that don't know Ryan, he's got, a really, really incredible view of movies. And he sees movies at, these levels that I just marvel at. So I'm excited.
Well, you've helped me figure out a few movies, one of which I'm actually going to talk about.
Yeah.
So
is that what I think it is?
I don't know. We'll find out. We'll find out. But so I didn't rank them in order necessarily of best to worst. I just ranked them alphabetically.
It's just 5 movies.
It's just 5 movies that I happen to like.
No one's ranking.
Yeah, right. This is not a ranking. So the first one I came up with is one that many of you may not have heard of. Part of that is it was made in 1987. It did win Best Picture, I believe, for Best Foreign Film. So it's got subtitles too. But it's called Babette's Feast.
Oh my God, amazing.
And it's probably the most mindful of all the movies on my list because it's a very sweet, simple story told just wonderfully about these 2 spinster sisters who live in a small religious village that was founded by their father, who has since passed away. And they end up taking in a French woman as a refugee. And I won't give away the entire plot, but the whole movie, it touched me because it touches on themes of, regret and getting older and thinking about, well, what if my life had been different if I had done this? And coming to peace with that in a way that's really beautiful. And on another level, it also talks about what it means to be a true artist. Is it because you just want to be rich and famous, or is it just because you love the joy of what you feel when you're doing what you're passionate about? And if there's anyone out there who actually watches this movie and then doesn't get a lump in their throat, a little tear in their eye at the end, I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, that's my first one.
That's really good.
I would recommend.
I haven't heard of that movie.
Yeah, you have, because we've talked about it before.
They talk a lot about it, French movies, but
Yes. This is a movie that is life-altering on so many different levels. And I cannot recommend it enough out there
What's
for
it called?
everybody.
Babette's
Babette's Feast.
Feast. Okay.
And
Who's the director? Do you know?
I don't remember. Like I said, it was made 30 years ago plus.
Yeah.
So, and I couldn't tell you the actress's name either.
Super French.
Well, it's
Super
actually
French.
in both. It takes place in Denmark. So some of the movie is in Danish and some of the movie is in French. So they switch back and forth. But, you're reading subtitles, so it doesn't matter.
So it doesn't really matter.
so
And we all here don't have problems reading subtitles,
no, but that's been more of a recent thing for me.
Yeah.
Amazing. Oh my God. All right, Ryan comes out of the gate going
All right,
strong.
that's really good.
Strong.
I really like that analysis. So for
thank
me,
you.
yeah. So what I really like, my next movie,
And again, in no particular order.
In no particular order. But this movie I still think about to this day, and even when I saw it in the movie theaters. So this movie is actually a sequel to an original. This is Blade Runner 2049. Now, I've talked to you guys about how much this movie impacted me. So I think the number one thing that really struck me about this movie, especially because Denis Villeneuve is one of my favorite filmmakers of all time. So when you pair him with Roger Deakins, the cinematographer for Blade Runner 2049, that's like the dream team for me, because they're just like on a whole nother level. They've inspired me on so many different levels. But the one main thing that really made me think about Blade Runner 2049 is the humanity and how they explore the humanity. Especially, like, there are certain times in the film where you feel like the replicants are more human than the humans. And, like, especially with Ryan Gosling's character.
Don't spoil things.
I'm not going to spoil things. And if I do, I will put a spoiler warning beforehand. But if you haven't seen the film, I highly recommend you do so. So if you have seen the first film, with Harrison Ford's character, you kind of realize, you discover something about him in a relationship that he had in the first film, and that kind of causes some confusion within this world with the new set of replicants. And that causes Ryan Gosling's character to go on this whole journey of like who he really is. And it's just the exploration of the humanity and the different emotions that he experiences, even though he's not technically human, and how human he actually was, to me was the most, one of the most cathartic experiences I've ever had. And it was one of the most human things I've ever experienced. Especially, I remember at the end of that movie, I sat in the theater for a solid 5 minutes in silence, just processing what just happened because of the raw emotion that was portrayed and the way that it was filmed, the way it was directed,
If I remember, you didn't see the first one before you saw 2049.
Yeah, it's even more powerful if you see the original and that movie, because it ties everything together so wonderfully.
Yeah, and like Dan said, I actually didn't see the first one all the way through. I had started watching it like the day of we were going to see 2049, and I didn't finish it. But it still impacted me. But then after watching the original and then going back and rewatching 2049, you're right. It does have a really, really bigger impact because you understand the relationships beforehand. So,
okay, so I'm going to segue because on my list is actually the original Blade Runner. So I remember when the original, again, I saw it in the theater. So I'm getting my age.
Really dating ourselves here. Got a bunch of old people around this table.
Well, I'm not old. But anyway.
Yes.
So I have to say that when I first, okay, so I love sci-fi and anything science fiction. And of course I just talked about the Star Wars trilogy. So when this movie came out, it was 79, I believe, right?
It was
1980, 81.
81?
I think.
So it was right in between like Empire and Return. And of course it's got Harrison Ford, and they market this as this great sci-fi movie. And then I go into the movie and I'm like, okay, it's not Star Wars. And at all. Like, I don't even think there was one laser.
I think the movie got panned at the time.
Right. Well, I think the reviewers, the people hated it, but the reviewers liked it.
No, even the critics at the time. It's gotten rehabilitated over the years.
Yeah.
And people see what a really great movie is.
Because they went in expecting Star Wars, and it wasn't Star Wars.
Right. And I did. And surprisingly, when I left the theater, I loved the movie. And I think the reason why, for me, that I loved it so much is what you were talking about with 2049. Is it really kind of examined what is a human being, because you have blood biological humans, and then you've got kind of
the replicants,
which are cyborg-ish, right? Because part machine, part human.
Yeah, they seem to be made of flesh, though. That's what's weird. They're manufactured humans, is what
and
they
they
are.
Bleed,
right? They bleed. They have eyes. They,
So when I saw it, I was like, it really struck me. One, that I was watching this incredible story on the backdrop of a science fiction thing, like a dystopian future, right? Which we haven't really had a lot of dystopian future movies by that point. Like, it's common now in 2020, but back in the 80s, dystopian futures weren't something we had a lot of. It was there, but not a lot of. So I loved that idea of what the future would look like, and also having us as human beings look at a story that has consequences to how we were treating our planet.
Yeah.
And the way that the planet looked and ran, and even that we weren't even on our planet anymore because they had gone to...
Well, yeah, I think the premise was there had been some kind of nuclear incident on Earth, which made, life much harder, changed the weather. So they were encouraging people to leave Earth to go colonize other planets.
That's right. And it was just, I don't know, it was fascinating to me to see a story like that, because for myself, that was the first of its kind for me. I had never seen something that explored that. And of course I was younger, because I was middle school when I was out. And so it was a very powerful movie. And I loved when 2049 came out, because to see a sequel that literally just extended the ideas of what the original Blade Runner was. So for me, the original Blade Runner was on because I just thought it was such a first of its kind and such a powerful thing. So that's why it was on my list. I loved it.
And it takes place in 2019. And
that's lot of the funny part. It's set in Los Angeles in 2019.
And some of the stuff...
And it's not far off of...
and some of the stuff that they... portrayed in the movie, like with technology especially, is very accurate to today.
Accurate.
So they did a good job of
the huge electronic billboards.
Anticipating.
That's right.
I wouldn't say predict, I would say anticipate what might be.
Yeah, but it did say, like, this is a possibility. And it was a very realistic possibility.
Yeah.
So I thought that was cool, but...
Yeah, kind of like how you see Harrison Ford's character walking through the city, and you see, like, all the billboards with the lights. That kind of like if you're walking through Times Square, that's kind of what it's...
Exactly.
What it's portraying.
Exactly. So it was just really an idea of, if we continue on the road that we're on, this is what could happen.
Yep.
So it was neat. I just thought the message was fascinating. So, Rai, what's your second movie?
Well, my second movie is Dangerous Liaisons.
Oh, so good.
Liaisons dangereuses.
Yes, because I've seen this movie so many times, and a lot of people out there may remember like the knockoff versions of, I think it was called Cruel Intentions.
Oh, Cruel Intentions, yes.
They tried to, put the story in a modern setting. The reason when I first saw this, I was so impressed with how literate and intellectual the conversation was, but at the same time so impactful. The way they talked to each other was they said exactly what they meant, and the words just cut right through the air. And
not a lot of connotation through it, very much more denotation than connotation.
Right. It was, and part of that is because it was based on a play, and the screenwriter was the playwright. And it was a Tony Award-winning play based on a novel. But it's for those of you who've seen Cruel Intentions, it's very similar. But it's about how, it's these bored aristocrats who have nothing better to do than play cards and try to destroy young virgins' lives, apparently, is what they're trying to do. So some not so nice characters in it, but it goes into subjects like the power of love and how our egos can get in the way of our own happiness. And one of the characters, I won't give it all away, but you probably already know the story by now, a lot of you, but one of the characters lets that happen and he regrets it in the end. And the ending of the movie is extremely satisfying, while at the same time being very tragic.
Wasn't that ending, didn't they add that in the film? That wasn't in the book? Or in the
play?
It
wasn't in the play.
Because the play was adapted by Christopher Hampton in the 50s.
Yes, and Christopher Hampton wrote the screenplay for the movie, so those final scenes were added by him to add a little oomph to it, which I think was much better.
Yeah. Which is odd, because normally I'm always going to say the play is better.
Because then that brings up the argument, which one's more realistic?
Yeah, but this one was.
Yeah.
The movie was definitely more realistic.
So, and aside from the fact that it's a gorgeous movie to look at.
Gorgeous.
I mean, the cinematography, the costumes, and the director, Stephen Frears, he does this thing where he will do a close-up on all of the actors' faces. Like, there's so many close-ups on these actors' faces. So you can see every twitch, every look, and this, the only thing I would say that maybe didn't hit home was Keanu Reeves it's one of his first roles, and I have a hard time buying him as a French aristocrat when he's talking in his, California surfer accent. But
that was also shortly after Bill and Ted, right? Or was it before?
It was before Bill and Ted, I think. This was his first real big role.
And his character that he played it off as very Bill and Ted.
Yeah. But you can look past it because his character was a minor one. He didn't.
Plus, how can you not love Keanu? He's like such a nice guy.
Yes. And you end up buying it. But on the whole, the movie was just, I wouldn't have watched it as many times as I did if I didn't like it.
John Malkovich was terrific.
Yeah,
he's one of my favorite actors as well.
And the last 20 minutes are very powerful.
Yeah,
very,
very powerful.
All right, so my next film, this one was an easy pick for me. Like, this is one of the first films I chose to put on my list, and it was Nightcrawler with Jake Gyllenhaal.
Oh, so good too.
I can't remember the director's name. I feel so bad for that, but it was actually his debut feature film. And after I heard that, I was like floored because this film's a literal masterpiece. And the reason why I chose this film was not only was it amazing, but it also was the film that really made me love Jake Gyllenhaal. Because if you guys know me, then you know I love Jake Gyllenhaal. Like, I look up to him as an actor. Dan Gilroy, that's his name. Thank you so much. And that was Nightcrawler, I believe, was the film that really got me into Jake Gyllenhaal and all his work that he's done. And after that movie, I was like, I need to watch every movie he's done. And I haven't done that since. But this...
You've seen most of them.
I've seen most of them, but not all of them. I haven't seen Bubble Boy. I'm going to get around to it, though. So Nightcrawler is... So Jake Gyllenhaal plays this guy. And basically what a Nightcrawler is... That's the actual name for it, is somebody who will go to like a crime scene or something like that, film some footage of it, and sell it to like news stations so they can make a profit off it. So Jake Gyllenhaal plays this guy, and he actually lost a ton of weight for this role. Like, if you see like pictures of him, he is so real thin. It kind of reminds me of like Christian Bale from The Machinist, like how thin he got for that role. But he gets so entangled into this job, and he becomes so good at it that he eventually hires a partner. So it's just him and his partner. And his partner, played by Riz Ahmed, I believe it was Riz Ahmed, and they sort of like go along this journey together. And he's a bit odd. You start to discover some of the odd things that he does like throughout the film. But you start to see his slow descent into madness, and how like the better he gets at his job and the crazier you see that he becomes. So just the way that it was done and the slow descent was extremely fun to watch and extremely intriguing to watch. I can't believe he didn't get nominated for an Oscar for that role. He should have been at least nominated.
I think he's very underrated.
Extremely underrated. The only time he's been nominated for an Oscar was for Brokeback Mountain. That was the only time he got nominated.
Deservedly so.
Yeah, and he's had so many Oscar-worthy performances, but never been nominated as much. But yeah, so Nightcrawler, that was the first film that really got me into Jake Gyllenhaal, and after that, since then, I've seen a lot of his movies, and I look up to him a lot as an actor, especially wanting to get into film and everything. So for me, that was my second film on my list, was Nightcrawler, directed by Dan Gilroy, featuring Jake Gyllenhaal.
He was amazing in that.
Very good movie.
We're going to go around one more. We have two more. We have one more movie each in this podcast. Our next mindWATCH podcast, which will be in 3 weeks, we're going to do the other half of our list, plus each of us have an honorable mention. Mm-hmm. So after one more round, we'll be kind of like halfway through, and then in a couple weeks, you'll have to come back and hear our other half. So to be continued. So I'm going to go with another trilogy, one that was huge for me, which was the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Precious.
Yes, my precious. So, okay, I, as a child, hated to read. And, my parents had a really hard time getting me to read. But when
I feel that.
I think when I was in 5th grade or 6th grade, I read The Hobbit. And it changed my world. Ever since I read The Hobbit, I have loved to read. And my favorite books have always been The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings trilogy. So the only real movie that we had of the Lord of the Rings was this animated piece of crap that was just...
Oh, that was the Rankin Bass version that they did.
I think I watched that.
God,
Wasn't that great?
Awful. It was just awful.
But I remember watching it as a kid. I was like you, I read The Hobbit, and I was obsessed with it. And I remember watching that cartoon over and over.
I didn't like, because it wasn't what I wanted, right? So when Peter Jackson had announced he was going to make the Lord of the Rings trilogy, it is very well known in the media circles that Peter Jackson is probably the world's, outside of the Tolkien family, he's probably the world's greatest expert on J.R.R. Tolkien.
He's like his disciple.
Pretty much. Like Dave Filoni is to George Lucas.
He's a huge nut.
Oh, yes, he is. And, I was really excited because I felt if these movies were going to do anything, if there was ever going to be a translation of these books into movie, it was going to be Peter Jackson. And I went the day it opened, the day that Fellowship opened. I did. I reread all the books right before. The fact that they were all being filmed together, which was very unique at the time, to have all 3 movies being filmed together. So it could be, like with Star Wars, we had to wait 3 and 4 years in between each movie.
Yeah.
So for this, it was going to be one Christmas after another. And I went the day that it opened, and I was blown away. I went the very next day again. And the story I've always loved, because the story that Tolkien really brings out is this world where just everything exists. And it's this good and bad thing, but good and bad is veiled. It's not as clear-cut as Star Wars. And
there's
the
more
way
gray
that
areas.
it is. And the way that the different ages come, and the stories and the lore that comes out, that really helps you to identify different aspects and characteristics in yourself that you can see in different characters on the screen. They're very believable. Even though it might be a hobbit and we're a human and not a hobbit, a lot of us can see so many different of our traits in them. And how they tackle a problem, and how not everybody's meant to tackle a problem. Mm-hmm. Not everybody in the world is meant to tackle the same problems. We all have different strengths, and we all have different weaknesses, and we all approach life in a different way. And to be able to watch that and watch this world come to life was just some of the most powerful movie magic I've ever sat through.
And it's one of the most iconic underdog tales because
It is.
Frodo is the underdog because he's a hobbit and he's shorter, figuratively and literally.
Right. But you also, I mean, not only that, but J.R. Tolkien actually created several languages. He was a linguist and created from scratch
Brilliant.
all these different languages that are spoken as if it were like English or Spanish or German or something like that. So that was incredible. The music, the score, the different motifs that they used and how they used it.
The battle scenes.
There's just, yeah. So I happen to be a huge fan of the extended edition. So each movie is about 4 hours long, and I still think it could be longer. But
Would you sit and watch it straight through, no breaks?
We have.
That's a commitment. I love Lord of the Rings. I don't know if I could do it. I need at least an intermission.
No, well, I mean, you get like 10 minutes in between each movie. You go to the bathroom and get your next round of food. But yeah, amazing.
That is a lot.
Oh, love it.
I was going to include it on my list, but I knew it'd be on yours.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ryan. What's yours? Final one for
my
today.
final one for today is a David Lynch movie. And I know David Lynch is not everyone's cup of tea, but it's called Mulholland Drive.
Amazing.
Made in 2001. I think it was Naomi Watts' first real big role. And the first time I watched this movie, it was over, and I said to myself, what did I just watch? Because I am so confused. And then I watched it again with Dan, and he got it right away. And when it was explained to me, the entire movie made complete sense. So this movie is not just David Lynch doing weird things like he did on Twin Peaks or whatever.
So good. Oh.
This movie actually does have a plot, and
Twin Peaks had a plot?
I won't do any spoilers, but it's basically there's two halves of the same movie, and they connect in a way that you, the viewer, have to figure out, and that's what the challenge is. And it's almost like a journey into the subconscious, which is why I liked it so much. I will warn you, there's a huge jump scare in this movie. Even though it's not a horror movie, it made me jump out of my seat. It really did.
Was it one of those jump scares where it was like an earned jump scare?
You didn't expect it. You kind of expected it, but didn't. And when it happened, it just scared the crap out of me. But
terrifying.
But I would recommend watching it, and if you do, watch it as a challenge and see if you can figure out what the movie's about.
But it does keep you going. Like, it's not
And
boring.
don't read the Wikipedia article.
No,
before
don't. Do not.
Because anybody can go on Wikipedia and edit it.
No, but don't. Just
Yeah.
watch the movie.
Just watch it.
But that's my third and final pick for today.
For today.
All right, so my third and final pick. This one actually just popped into my head. I'm like, wow, how could I have forgotten about this movie for
You
how
change your list?
Yeah, I changed a couple of them actually because it's just hard to choose 5 because there's so many movies that I love. But if I have to think of films that impacted me throughout the years, this one was a big one, and I truly believe that it was revolutionary, especially for CGI and the way it kind of paved the way for summer blockbusters, and that was Avatar from 2009. James Cameron, Sam Worthington, Sigourney Weaver. I remember, so I was 13 years old at the time when this movie came out. I don't remember too many movie experiences like when I was super young because my memory's not that great. But this is one that I truly remember. I believe we saw it together with my mom and my grandparents and stuff. We went to IMAX in Fort Lauderdale on that huge screen, and I was much shorter than I am now. I was half the height because I was 13 years old. Sat down. The screen is gigantic. If you've ever been to an
like
IMAX
a
theater,
70-foot tall screen or something like that.
and like the Dolby speakers and everything.
And
Like,
it was
I-
3D, so we had those massive goggles on because it was
Yes.
through IMAX, so we had the huge goggles that were on.
That was when
just
3D was like
one.
really 3D. Now 3D is just kind of like a peripheral thing, but before 3D would actually like come out at you. Maybe you see things differently when you're a kid, or I don't know, maybe that's what it is. But yeah, so I sat down in that theater, and some of the pictures, like especially of the Tree of Life, were just so jaw-dropping. And I remember seeing it as a kid being like, wow, this is why James Cameron takes 13 years to make a movie. I know everybody memes on James Cameron for that, but like he takes his time, and it is down to every single detail. Now, there's a couple things I have about the plot, but it's really just about the visionary experience that I have for the film. Because people say, oh, it's the same thing as Dances with Wolves and Cowboys versus Indians. But nonetheless, the visuals are what make this film groundbreaking. And I believe it should have won the Oscar. Sorry, Hurt Locker.
That was Hurt Locker year.
And that was James Cameron's wife who directed that. And there's a lot of tea there. People are like, ooh, what's this tea?
Oh, there was tea.
So, but yeah, that is the big reason why Avatar, and it truly did inspire like a lot of summer blockbusters that we have now, especially because sometimes the CGI isn't great in certain movies, but like when the CGI is good, like the CGI is good. And
it felt real.
It felt real. Extremely immersive, and like the nature aspects and the colors and the different blues and greens and like. There's the theme of nature was really prevalent in that movie, and that was something when I was a kid, like it just seemed so gigantic, especially on that screen and with the speakers and everything. So that left a lasting impact.
It was a stunning movie.
It was
very beautiful.
It really was, and I like the message in it as well. So it was very.
So that concludes my list for this week.
All right, so everybody, you've heard our three. We will do in 3 weeks. mindWATCH will be back, and we will have another 2 that's on our list plus 1 honorable mention. So you'll get another 3 movies. We've given you a lot to think about this week, a lot of movies, and if you haven't seen some of them, please do yourself a favor, rent them. A lot of them are on Netflix at this point. Or any of the others, or iTunes, or any of the other streaming services.
There's so many streaming services.
There really are. Hulu and Amazon Prime. But please do yourself a favor. Go watch some movies. Relax and enjoy. We do have our summit, our very first virtual summit, which is going to be on August 1st. And we are excited about it. Ryan's already signed up. We welcome an international author and public speaker, motivational speaker that's going to talk about the aspect of gratitude and positivity. We have a physical mindfulness with many different athletes from the Division I collegiate sports, including from Clemson and FSU and UCF from their women's soccer team.
And UF.
And UF, of course, can't forget my alma mater. And then we have a meditation and grounding seminar that is going to be Thomas and myself, and then also Sierra, who is on our board. She's going to go over the grounding technique with us. And then we have a really great Q&A, question answer, that is going to be those of us from mindFULLme. We also have school board representative from the 3rd School Board District, Heather Brinkworth, that is going to be joining us for that as well to answer all of your questions on mindfulness or different policies with mindfulness and in the school board that Ms. Brinkworth will be able to answer. So it is free. It is 100% free. Go to mindFULLme.org and register yourself, and you will get a link to click on that morning. It is from
9 o'clock to 12:30.
And so definitely come on board. It's a great free experience. You also will receive a mindFULLme Level 1 certification. So for those of you that are looking for things to go on your resume, that is a great one. If you have any questions, just go to mindFULLme.org and ask them. We are here for you guys. Also, please don't forget to like and subscribe. We do appreciate it. We try really hard at mindFULLme to bring what you guys want to hear and to keep things going and to keep things special. So if you have any suggestions, please just let us know too. And of course, you can find all of our things on mindFULLme.org or Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, Google Play, wherever it is that you find and download your podcasts. You can find all of our meditations, our podcasts, and weekly messages there. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and all social media. So we really do appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Spread the word.
Yes. Thanks for listening, everybody. We hope you liked this episode.
We do, and we'll see you on the next episode of mindWATCH. Go watch a movie.
See you later.
Thank you for watching this episode of mindWATCH with Daniel and Thomas. We hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to visit our website, mindfulme.org, for resources just like this. Also, follow us on social media at mindFULLme Inc. We're now available on Google Podcasts, Zencast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and everywhere else you get podcasts. All you have to do is search mindFULLme. That's mindful spelled with 2 L's, mindFULLme. We can't wait to see you on there, and have a great rest of your day.